Hi, I'm Shervin Nakjavani, Associate Curator at the Petersen Automotive Museum, and this is World Class, 100 Years of Mercedes-Benz. We're so excited to have you with us to walk you through the exhibit. This won't be a complete exhibit walkthrough. For that, you'll actually have to come in person, but I'm going to try and give you some of the key highlights, some of the key cars that you definitely don't want to miss here. This is the 1936 Mercedes-Benz 540K Cabriolet by Erdmann and Rossi. This is from the time period when coach building was very common, and coach builders were these places that you could take your car to have a completely unique body designed just for you, just the way you wanted it. And if you were wealthy enough, you could buy one of these cars. So Mercedes-Benz was making the 540K in the mid to late 30s, and it was their top of the line, most exclusive model that they had. It had a 5.4 liter supercharged inline 8, and it was very, very much world class. This car was owned by a socialite and heiress to the Woolworth's fortune, a department store in the US, named Barbara Hutton. And Barbara Hutton was very, very wealthy, could afford a car like this, and what she wanted was to have a four-seater layout. So usually the 500K, the 540K, these were cars that were designed for you to drive yourself, in contrast to many of the cars that were really designed for chauffeurs to drive you around in, but this was for you to actually be behind the wheel. But she didn't want that. She wanted to sit not next to the chauffeur, but behind the chauffeur. That's where she preferred to be. So this was a very custom build. She also wanted to have symmetry on her car. So symmetry, what I mean by that is that on many of the cars from this era, you'll see exhaust pipes on one side of the hood, but she wanted to have them on both sides. So these exhaust pipes you see right here are fake. They're not real. It might fool the eye, and that was the whole idea, but that's actually not what it is. So we can't talk about Mercedes-Benz without talking first about Mercedes and Benz. And here we have the oldest Mercedes in America. It's a 1902 Mercedes Simplex 28 horsepower. And then we have a replica of the first Benz, which was the 1886 patent motor wagon, which basically started the whole legacy. In 1886, a coincidence happened. There were two inventors in the same part of southwestern Germany named Gottlieb Daimler and Carl Benz. They didn't know each other. They actually never even met. But at the same time, they were both working on their own versions of the automobile. Benz created the first petroleum-powered three-wheel automobile known as the patent motor wagon that became patented. He was the first one to actually patent it. That's where the name comes from. At the same time, Daimler was working with his partner, Wilhelm Maybach, to design the first practical four-wheel automobile. So all that happened in 1886, and that's where both of those companies sort of started independently and kept growing throughout the years. What you may not know is that Mercedes was actually named after somebody, and that was Mercedes Jellinek. That's her right up there. Mercedes was the daughter of Emil Jellinek, and Emil was a very prominent client of Daimler Motorengesellschaft, or just DMG. He was very passionate. He always wanted to have the cars improved, and in 1899 he commissioned a special Daimler that he asked to be named after his 11-year-old daughter at the time, Mercedes Jellinek. So Mercedes was a name that he really loved. When he was racing himself, he called himself Mr. Mercedes, so he really loved that name, and it sure stuck. The irony is that Mercedes herself did not like cars at all. She didn't share her passion, her father's passion for cars. She felt nothing for cars. She never even owned a car herself. Isn't that crazy? Mercedes, the actual Mercedes, never actually owned a car. So both DMG and Benz & Company were independently both doing very well in the late 19th century and early 20th century. All that changed in the 1920s after World War I, when there was hyperinflation. The auto industry was really struggling in Germany, and in 1924 they started working closely together as part of a joint venture. In June of 1926, they formally merged to become Daimler-Benz AG, and that is when Mercedes-Benz was born, June 28th, 1926, almost 100 years ago. So this is the 1928 Mercedes-Benz S, and the S was the first model that was actually developed after the merger completely from the ground up, because there was the Model K before this, and that was a carryover rebadged as a Mercedes-Benz after the merger. The Mercedes-Benz S was developed as a performance model. It was designed by Ferdinand Porsche, yes, that Ferdinand Porsche, and it was very successful in racing, and then that brought about the SS, then the SSK, then the SSKL. So it was very successful in a lot of ways, and its design was very much influential for other car companies all around the world, like Duesenberg in the US. In the 1930s, Mercedes-Benz grew tremendously, and that was for a variety of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons was what was obviously happening in 1930s Germany, which was the rise of the Nazi Party. So, of course, a very dark chapter in history. For Mercedes-Benz, they somehow made it through as an improved company, as an effect of that. In the 1930s, in the mid-30s, we had the 500K, the 540K, which I already talked about, and these were they were supercharged cars. That's what the K stands for. K stands for compressor, which means supercharged in German. Of course, you could send it off to your own coach builder to have your own body designed by whoever you wanted, but the in-house coach builder at the time for Mercedes-Benz was called Sindelfingen, named after the city where the plant is still based. We have the 500K over there, and the 500K is one of only 419 built, only 29 with that special roadster bodywork, which is actually distinguished by the fact that you can't see the top at all when the top is down. Then we have the Autobahn Courier. This car is incredibly unique, incredibly rare. There are only 4 of these cars with this body built and only 2 of the 540Ks with this body. The Autobahn Courier, as the name suggests, was designed to be driven on the Autobahn, which was a brand new thing at that time. So to see one in this condition is just absolutely incredible. I should take this moment to acknowledge the Keller Collection at the Pyramids, who have generously lent 11 of the vehicles in their incredible collection for this exhibit. And they have been hugely influential in the preservation of cars from this era. And they have won 80 awards at Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, including 3 Best of Show awards. And that one includes this. So it's definitely a special car in a lot of ways, not only from its time period, but in the modern day too, because it represents the preservation of these incredible cars all these years later, all these decades later. We can't talk about Mercedes-Benz in the 30s without talking about the Silver Arrows. The Silver Arrows were a series of race cars that were developed in Germany, also by Auto Union, and they got their nickname because in 1932, a radio announcer saw the unpainted aluminum bodywork and called it a Silver Arrow, and the name just stuck. Obviously, this one is painted, but it is one of the most renowned and memorable Silver Arrow race cars from the period. It's the W154, and it's from 1938. So the W154 was one of 16 just built, and this is number 7. It was driven to victory by Hermann Lang in the European Grand Prix Championship, and out of all 16, this is the one that won the most races. So it's definitely a car that is worth recognizing. And it's incredible. The numbers at the time that this car was making were mind-boggling. 438 horsepower, 190 miles per hour out of a 3-liter supercharged V12. If you compare these numbers to the cars even that I was just talking about now, it's night and day. It's a complete difference. You know, if you imagine going 190 miles per hour with these tires in this bodywork with absolutely no protection, I mean, it really just highlights the bravery and courage of some of these drivers. It's just incredible. So in 1939, World War II starts, and every racing program that Mercedes-Benz was participating in comes to a complete halt. Everything changes in terms of priorities for the company and for the country, of course, and the world. After World War II, Mercedes-Benz was in a bad financial state, and all they could really do was to use what they had in terms of their passenger cars. And the only passenger car that you could buy after World War II, in the several years following World War II, was the 170, one model. Now, that's not exactly true, because the 170 was actually an extremely versatile platform on which they sold sedans, limousines, ambulances, convertibles like this, and all sorts of cars. So it was really their bread and butter, and it's what allowed them to keep the lights on. And if it wasn't for the 170, then they wouldn't have had the resources to get back into racing in the early 50s with the 300 SL. The 300 SL, also known as the W194, was an extremely cutting-edge race car for the time. It was super successful right from the get-go, and just looking at it, you can see all the differences in terms of how it was designed compared to the cars that came before, even the Silver Arrow cars, which were extremely successful in their day. The 300 SL had multiple different iterations, and you can see them on the mural behind me. You can see where it started on the right and all of the different versions that it had throughout the years. This is a very unique model because it's known as the Hobel. It's another car that came to us from the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Germany. And Hobel refers to carpenter's plane in German. That's how people kind of nicknamed this car because of the way that the front is shaped. It's very unique. It's the only one in the world like this. And it was originally supposed to be a part of 10 of these built. The 10 number was canceled, and this was the only one that actually ended up being built. And it wasn't actually used for racing, but it was used for experimental testing. There are many things that set this apart from its predecessor, the W194 race car, and that is that it's got a shorter wheelbase. It's got obviously the different front end. It's got all sorts of vents actually going onto the rear of the car, the rear quarter panels, the rear fenders, and it is fuel injected. This car right here, this particular one next to me, is the very first prototype from Mercedes-Benz to use direct fuel injection. So that was a big deal back in the day, extremely advanced. Obviously, every gas-powered car that we have now is fuel injected, and this is kind of where it all started, this particular car right here. So the 300 SL obviously became the production 300 SL Coupe that we know today, and when you look at this car, you might think that that's what this is, but it's not. It's another prototype very much later on that looks like the production coupe. It's also from the Keller Collection, and they're very small things that if you know these cars, if you look closely, you will notice that are not on the production car. The seat backrests have louvers in them, which I think is a great touch. I don't know why it didn't make it into the production car. The steering wheel is fixed. It's not able to be tilted back up and down, which the production car got. I think that was probably a smart feature to have. And there are other very minor things that you'll notice that didn't make it over. In the years following World War II, the US had the highest GDP out of any country, and it was a very lucrative market that a lot of car companies wanted to get into, including Mercedes-Benz. There was an importer in New York named Max Hoffman who was Austrian but based in the US, and he was not only an importer and a dealer, but he was kind of seen as a middleman for a lot of these smaller European brands that wanted to come into the US. So in 1953, at a meeting, Mercedes-Benz asked Max Hoffman for his thoughts on what car that they should bring to the US. And he said, well, if you want my honest opinion, that 300 SL race car you've been taking around the world, that's what you should bring to the US. And they said, well, you can't be serious. That's a race car. It's not a road car. And he said, well, no, I'm serious, and I'm actually going to order 1,000 examples. And he had asked for a coupe and a roadster, but only the coupe first started being made. Of course, it was highly successful. All the stars wanted one. Sophia Loren, Frank Sinatra, Clark Gable, people like this were seen driving them, and it only helped to boost the glamorous image that Mercedes-Benz would, for years and years and decades, become known for primarily in the US as a luxury car brand, as something very glamorous and very much a status symbol. At the 54 International Motorsports Show in New York, where the car made its debut, there was a lot of interest in the 300 SL Coupe, and everybody wanted one. People were lining up to order them. And there was a man there named Alfred Jenkins, and Alfred Jenkins was a book publisher. And he was very well connected to the automotive world. He was friends with all the F1 drivers. He knew people at the Daimler-Benz factory in Germany. And he didn't need a middleman like Max Hoffman. He didn't need a dealership to go through. So he literally just called up his contacts and he said, I want one of those, put my name down for one. Cars were supposed to be delivered by June of 1954, but there were production issues and delays, and September was when people finally started getting their cars. Well, Briggs Cunningham got chassis number 3, and he was friends with Alfred Jenkins. So Jenkins went to visit him, and he said, hey, you want to take a ride in my new car? This is what you can expect when you get yours shortly. So he went over, and it was not what he expected at all. It was not the car that he thought he had ordered. Instead, it was a very race car inspired experience. It was very mechanical, it was very sprightly, and it was just not the grand touring car that he thought it was going to be. So he called the factory in Germany and he said, I've heard that you guys have been working on a roadster prototype, so I'm actually going to ask you to cancel my order for a coupe and instead switch it to a roadster. Whenever it's ready, I don't care if it's today, tomorrow, next year, the year after that, I just want one, and I want it to be spec'd out exactly like that roadster prototype that you've been working on. So this light metallic blue, the dark blue leather interior, all of these are signatures of that prototype that have made it onto this one, and all of those things are what make this 300 SL Roadster the very first one ever ordered by a customer. So it's definitely a very special car, definitely very important to the 300 SL story, and we are thrilled to be able to have it here. It's still owned by his son, by the way, and is very highly documented. As the 20th century went on, colors became more and more vibrant in car companies all around the world, specifically in the US, but certainly also in Germany with Mercedes-Benz. Here in 1976, you can see this wonderful photo of all the different types of colors that were offered. This little panel here is probably something you won't see anywhere else, definitely not in any other car museum in the world. And these are what are known as data plates. So from the mid-60s until the early 2000s, almost any Mercedes-Benz passenger model that you would have lifted the hood up of and you would have looked at the radiator support right in front of you, there would have been one of these tags. That was the color of the car. It listed out the model designation, all the option codes, as well as the paint code. And I'm a Mercedes-Benz owner myself. I have two older W126 cars, 300 SD from 1984, as well as a 500 SEL from 1985. It's a gray market car. And I was spending a lot of time in junkyards trying to pick parts for these cars. This is before I even started working here. I noticed that there were a lot of cars in interesting colors that I hadn't seen before, colors that were kind of going extinct. And I noticed these were only held in by 2 screws, so I could just take them off and take them with me. So that's what I started doing. These are 42 individual cars from different junkyards, all the hours and miles and gas that I spent accumulating these over the years. They polished up pretty nicely actually for living their whole lives next to an engine. And they're here for you to see, and it's cool to actually finally see them as part of a display like this.